Welcome to a meeting of the Town of Barnstable's Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee. Today is June 24th, 2024. This meeting is being recorded by the Town of Barnstable and will be available on Channel 8 after the meeting has been concluded. The agenda of this meeting is available on the town website. Hector, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Lillian.
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Jim.
Here.
Jackie.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
And Hector's here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. You have before you the minutes of the June 10th meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the June 10th meeting. Are there any corrections, comments? As usual, Teresa has captured all of it. So not hearing any, Hector, would you call the roll on that, please?
Lillian.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Jackie.
Yes.
Jim.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
And I vote in favor, so it's unanimous.
Thank you. We're really moving along here. The main issue for today is the organization of our town annual report. And before we do that, we have two members, Tom and Jim, who were not here to put that report together. So I'd really like to get your comments about it. You've read it for the first time, and so I'd like you to give us your evaluation of how we did and looking at it from the point of view of a resident.
I thought the report was very clear, direct. I love the graphics. So looking at it from the point of view of a resident, it speaks to transparency. So I was pleased with it.
Do you think that we covered all of the questions that a resident might have about the town? You know, where we get our money, how we spend it, that sort of thing.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I'm sure there are questions out there that I'm not imagining right now, but it's a very direct presentation. And I guess, a good report like this doesn't have to answer every question, but it should lay the groundwork for people, if they have other questions, to know where they can find the information.
Right. Thank you. Jim?
No, I'd like to echo Tom's comments as well. I thought it was very well done. Again, I'd like the graphics to be holds the reader's attention, gives them something to grab a hold of and go ferret through the report to find it where it's written in words. I was looking for a little more on the schools, but it's not necessary. It's a component of the general expenditures, so it's not a big deal. But I just thought it was, again, another well-written document by CFAC.
Thank you. Well, what we added was links that you could find extra information,
Right.
and we added the QR code last year, just to make it everything available to anybody who wanted to know more information. Well, since this is a
Mark's group, Mark, do you do that? Does that your group or IT put the barcodes on?
Neil actually provided the QR codes, but we have the capability of creating those as well.
That's great.
This is a committee report, and so if you think that we need to expand some sections, we can certainly do that. Traditionally, what has happened is I have, as the outgoing chair, what I've done is to have the subcommittee chairs for each of our subcommittees, and then I have basically coordinated this report. So I'm gonna turn it over and let Hector do that. But meanwhile, you know, we could certainly discuss the contents and see if anybody has any part that you would like to write. I have written the CWMP from the very beginning, and I'll be happy to do it again.
Okay, well, I think I agree with Jim and Tom. It's a thorough report. I guess if I'm a town resident, one thing I might be looking for, which I'm not sure I find here, except in little pockets here and there, is looking ahead. What issues is the town facing? Is the town council facing? And what are the financial implications of that? So if you step back, obviously there's CWMP, and there is the increasing debt coming from the CWMP. That might be one topic that we could touch on somewhere. Another would be the spending pressures that are coming because of the capital budget of the schools and the repair projects. That would be a second one. Then a third looking ahead topic might be workforce housing and how that gets financed. And again, there's not much that we can say about that, but we could simply flag that as an issue that will have financial implications.
Yeah.
And there are others. There's the issue of employee benefits, particularly healthcare, although the cost of that is considerably smaller than the other things I've been talking about. But in general, I think the report is very good in terms of looking at the most recent fiscal year. But if I'm an educated resident of the town, I might want a little bit of perspective from CFAC, and we're perceived to be the rocket scientists led by Chris Lazon, and I guess if I were an educated resident, I'd say, okay, well, these people they've talked a lot about what's going on to date, but what issues are staring at the town in the near future, and what if any financial implications flow from that. So that would be, Lillian, sort of a general comment that I might make. And I think there are ways we could condense some of what's in here in order to find a page, let's call it, for the sake of argument, looking ahead, something like that. So those are my comments.
I think the points you make are very good, because those are issues that we pointed out in our subcommittee reports,
Right.
both the CIP and the operating budget, and I think they're worth mentioning in this report. Some of the things that we could condense, if you all have it, we can go through it. We can condense the government structure portion. We like to keep it to about 12 pages.
Yeah.
Because it gets too cumbersome, and two, it's very expensive to print. So if we can keep it to 12-inch pages, that would be really great.
I think that would be the goal, to keep the same
The goal,
size.
I think, is to keep it the same.
Yeah.
We can, I think government structure can be condensed a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
And anybody, please jump in.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what other people think of.
Yeah, I'm very interested.
What sections would you want to see added, or what do you we agree that the report is very thorough, but what do you see as lacking?
Well, Jim had mentioned that he'd like to expand a little bit about the schools. And I think that would be appropriate to mention that the the school CIP was going to go up, and because it's necessary for maintenance and repair and replacement. That would be a good place for that.
One question I have is, in prior years, was the format basically the same?
Essentially,
Yeah, I
And,
think so.
and when it's been written in prior years in each year, how much have you found yourself copying from year to year?
not much. Well,
So
we've
like,
got,
well, I
yeah,
would think the structure of the government, you'd find pretty much the same from year to
Yeah.
year.
Yeah,
So
and that-
it seems to me that if there's stuff that's being repeated year after year, that's exactly the kind of stuff you could have a hyperlink. You could summarize it really quickly, have a hyperlink or something for someone to jump to if they want to know more.
yeah, we might, that's a good suggestion. We might not need that organizational chart, or we could condense the narrative on it.
Right. I mean, the chart's actually quite good. I think I'd
Oh,
keep
yeah,
that, but it's
yeah.
almost like what people want to dive, if people want to dive in and know more, you can just give them a link to it. And that way you
Yeah.
keep it down to, 10 to 12 pages.
I think the same could be said of the fire districts. We've always included them because they're independent, but we could condense that a little bit also.
yeah, I think it's important to keep the fire districts in there because
Oh, I
as we
think
all
so.
know,
But we have-
it's a place that takes our tax dollars, but it's not accounted for in the town's finances. So I think it's good.
We have a lot of illustrations, and we've got the bar chart and the pie chart, so we might be able to condense it a little bit.
Yeah. Property taxes, same thing. We could condense that. I mean, there's a lot of, we could condense, and following Tom's suggestion, have links so people could get more information. But I guess back on my comment, looking ahead, I think that will require some opinions being expressed by CFAC, and I think that's within our purview to do. Because again, we're the financial experts, so-called, and so I think just so long as when we make a statement, for example, that the town will need additional revenue beginning in fiscal 27 or 28. They're
I think we can extract that from our conclusions from the two subcommittee reports.
yeah.
Because
I think so.
they're very well written, and I
Yeah.
think they make the point. So
Yeah.
I think we can borrow from those reports, but I like the idea of looking ahead. What was disappointing last year was that very few people responded to our survey. There was a web browser. They wanted, feedback, but we didn't get any. So we may want to rethink all this. You can still make it available, but apparently residents feel that they have all the information that they are interested in the report.
Do we have any way of any metrics as to how many people have read it?
We don't. We do know that they're all, when we distribute them, they're all gone.
Yeah.
So we assume people pick them up.
Yes. I think sometimes documents like this end up being produced. Let me put it differently. If you did not produce a document like this, then people might be concerned. But the fact that such a document is produced satisfies their questions, and you don't get a lot. You don't get a lot of follow through from people. It's if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's the conclusion that we came to, that we covered as much as they wanted to know about revenue and spending. But there was no follow-up. So we don't know whether they went into the links.
Would you consider changing overall topics, for example? I'm just going through here because so much of it has already been covered in both formats, both the CIP and operating budgets. For example, enterprise funds, right? That took a whole page. Could you start to introduce a newer topic such as private, the things that we talked about last time? We had 3 areas that could be considered fairly new. and of more interest, such as private roads? Is that a topic we'd want to give more content to?
So I think, Jim, I think that's a coming issue, and I think absolutely it's something that we could pinpoint, whether in a bullet or something a little bit more, but that's definitely an issue, that Mark Ells is thinking about. So that would be a looking ahead kind of
Yeah,
topic.
yeah.
Chris, do you have any thoughts here? Chris made a good point from the operating report when he spoke before town council that the town is drawing substantially on reserves, has been on the last couple of years. And Chris, you made the point that that's not sustainable. Maybe that's a topic that we could introduce in sort of the looking ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that could be in that looking ahead section. So I think that that's a great idea. We definitely need that. And some of the other stuff can be condensed because again, the other reports have already gone in depth on all of these things. So if we want to just kind of summarize some of this stuff and link back to the subcommittee reports so people can look at it more in depth if they want to, I think that would be enough. So I mean, I agree with pretty much what everyone's been saying.
Yeah. Well, the only problem with that is that the residents don't get our subcommittee reports. So when
Well, they're online, correct?
they are online.
Yeah.
They are online. And whether a resident will take the time to look at that, we don't know.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we still want to have, a lot of this information in here, but definitely condense it some more. So maybe some of this stuff is only half a page instead of a whole page,
Right. I think though, Mark, what was the print run last year? 500, something like that?
No,
We only did 300.
300.
Yeah,
So with 40,000 residents in the town and about 36,000 voters, I think it would be a little misleading to say that because we printed 300 copies of it, it's fully available to the public. One of the things we talked about last year is, and Neil was quite eloquent on this, is thinking of all additional or incremental ways to distribute it. For example, by email to the town's the weekly e-newsletter and things like that. And I think that's something I'd like to talk about in time because, as Tom and Jim said, it's a very thorough report and we should make it very easy or make it as accessible as possible.
And of course, it's available.
Residents.
It's available on the town website.
Right.
When we put it out, I think it was one of the headliners with a link. So our communication director did a very good job of making it known. So I agree with you. If there are other ways you think we can make it available.
When is this due?
I believe it did go out on the e-news last year, didn't it?
It did?
Yeah.
Well, I think the e-news highlighted that it was available.
Yeah, right. I think, and I kind of made this, I made this point last year because I know Neil was really interested in feedback and he spearheaded that survey, which I think is great, but realistically, there's a limit to how much feedback you're going to get. And I think the general public probably is not overly interested in reading this report. It's important to make it available and make it, accessible to the general public, but I think we need to be realistic that most people are not actually going to read it. That's my own feeling anyway.
May I ask when the report's due?
Sorry?
What's your question?
When is the report due?
Well, we generally put it out in early September. So because we have only one meeting in July and one meeting in August, so now we have some time. So usually in August, we go over the final draft of it and then it's printed. I think people are interested in how the town is doing, how much money it takes in, what its revenue is, and how we spend it. And of course, they're very interested in, the fire districts and the amount that they have to pay, and of course, the property tax.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't want to, I should reword that, I guess. I mean, people are interested, but it's not like 40,000 people are going to be reading this report no matter what we do. That's the point I'm making. So
Yeah,
make it as accessible as possible, but I don't think we need to, I mean, there's a limit to what else we can do to make it more accessible, I think.
right, I agree.
Hey, Jackie, do you have any thoughts
How
about this?
about how about the channel 18? I think it's channel 18, the television station. How about using that as an outlet to advertise or to make it available or make people know that it's available?
Yeah, that's certainly an idea. One idea. There's one of our members could subject him or herself to an interview on Channel 18 to talk about the report. That's that would be a good thought.
Yeah, we had talked about that last year, but we never got around to it. So we can do it again this year and try.
Right, right.
So Hector, I guess it falls on you to coordinate all this.
Right. Well, I think the first thing I might do in conjunction with one or more of you all is to take a crack at condensing somewhat ruthlessly, pages 1 through 12, and then seeing how much space that frees up. I think the CWMP section, that's very, very important, but I think we could probably get that into one page. And then, as people have suggested, some of the other sections can be condensed. Does anyone want to? I mean, I'm happy to take a crack at condensing and then sending around a draft with portions of this deleted and get people to react. Do folks think that's a good way to do it, or should more than one person undertake to cut back some of this before we talk about drafting new sections?
I have a counter offer suggestion, and that is if you would draft the looking ahead portion to see how much space it takes.
Okay.
Once we figure out how much space it takes, then we can go back and figure out which parts we need to condense, which we probably can anyway, but we need to know how much, because that's what you're working on is really important. And so we need to know how much space to make.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So yeah, I can take a crack at framing.
Why don't you do
the
that?
Looking ahead section.
Yeah, just look at our two subcommittee reports and take our conclusions.
Right. Right. Okay. I'm happy to do that. Do people have other thoughts about what our next meeting is? Not for another month. Is that right, Mark? I think it's July.
Yeah, we had that at the end of July.
Right.
Well, I'll take a crack at condensing the CWMP.
Great. That would be good. That would be good. Jim, do you want to look at the education section? It's a full page. It's quite dense. You wanted to expand that. What are your thoughts on that? And do you want to take a crack at that? Sorry?
I'm sorry, I didn't see where it was a full page.
The education section.
Page 4?
Public education is page 8.
Page 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that.
Okay.
That's a lot of that is just repeat. So yeah, I'd love to take a crack at that.
Right. And would it be your concept, Jim, that it would still be a full page? but you'd probably
Let me just take a
re-emphasize
look-
certain
let me
things.
take a look at- Reread it. please.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Keene, you're the new kid on the block. Are there any sections? Is there a particular section here that you'd like to take a look at?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
I think I'm wary about too many cooks on something like this, but
Right.
I mean, you want to have something that's kind of flows smoothly rather than different styles of writing and so on.
Well, I don't know that you're going to need to rewrite it. So, for example, if you undertook to look at the property tax page 9,
Yeah.
And look at that, with the jaundiced eye of a stressed out taxpayer who is scraping together his quarterly or her quarterly tax payment. Would you write it this way, or would you recast it somehow?
So that's the problem. I would always write it differently. So, to be honest,
well,
Take a
so
crack at it.
That's my idea.
Why don't you
Take a crack at it,
take a
and then
crack at it?
and we can synchronize our styles. But we have 5 or 6 weeks until the next meeting. So
Yeah.
I'd be
happy to
curious,
do.
Tom.
All right.
I know you've done some freelance writing in your day, so I'd be curious to see what you'd do with that. We've talked about making this report accessible. So if to use Harry Truman's phrase, plain speaking, if there's a way that some of this information can be presented in a more of a layman's style, again, from the perspective, write it from the perspective of a taxpayer. That might be. I think that would be worth.
I'll take a crack at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
And then-
for those of you who haven't done these reports, this is actually much more reader friendly than when we first began them.
Yeah.
Initially, it was just cut rate, basic. These are the facts.
Right, with
And it
very
was
few
about as dry
graphics,
as you could be.
with very few pictures.
No pictures, hardly any graphs or anything. So Tom is going to do property tax. Chris?
I'll take a look at fire and the CIP, I guess.
Okay.
Jackie, is there a section that you wanna take a look at and think
You
about
want
how
that
you?
Section to me, Hector?
Yes,
sorry?
sorry.
You can assign a section to me.
No, we're
Okay.
giving you a choice here.
I'll take an assignment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what did you take?
Jackie wants
take
to
an
be.
assignment.
She wants an assignment.
Oh. How
So
let Hector.
about general fund?
Yep, that was what I did. Thank you.
General fund revenue and expenditures?
yeah, and again, for each of you, if you take a look at it and decide that the way it, the essential way that it's laid out, you think is good, then by all means express that point of view. You don't have to make change for change's sake. Although in the case of property taxes and Tom's background as a writer, I'd be looking for him to really spiff it up somehow. I'm not sure how.
Well, what we could do is to prevail on Tom after we've gotten through with our drafts and let him give it a nice spin.
I usually try to make things more lurid, so I'm not sure.
We're gonna make you we're gonna draft you as our editor.
All right.
I don't think there's a lot of material that could be made lurid in here unless you have a
You'd
wild
be
imagination.
surprised. Just go to the comments section of anything, any news article.
So
So the only thing left is enterprise funds and government structure, which
Right.
the committee chair gets to you. That's you.
well, I mean, but there's always Chuck, and there's also our new member. So
Well, you You hate to do the new member because he probably is new to the whole process.
Right, but he's, if you read his interview with the appointments committee, he talks about he's a teacher, and as a teacher, he is a storyteller. So he's akin to Tom here, and I think we could probably prevail upon him to roll up his sleeves and get involved.
Well, I gave Tom a free ride on the operating budget because he came in just before our deadline.
Right.
But I'll leave it to you.
I think I think I agree with Lillian here. Give the guy a break.
Yeah. But he does have the summer off after all, right? So he has a lot of free time. So if I just want to make sure I know who's doing what. So Lillian, CWMP.
Right.
Tom, taxes.
Right.
Property tax.
Jim, schools.
Right.
Chris.
Fire and CIP.
Yep.
Fire districts and CIP. CIP?
Yep.
Oh, capital improvement plan, yeah. And then Jackie, general fund.
General fund revenue and expenditures. That's a 2-pager.
Yeah.
And so we've got government structure and enterprise funds. And then you're doing the looking ahead.
Yeah, and I'll be that. So should we develop, Lillian, is it your advice that as people do their sections, they distribute them? Should they come to me, for example, or should Tom get them as they're drafted? What's your thought here?
Well, it depends. Well, you're the new chair, so you can set the deadline for the drafts.
Right.
And I assume that we want to review the draft at our July meeting.
I assume so, yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. So what I will do is I'll take a look at the calendar, but it seems to me if our July meeting, Mark, is July 20 something.
Yeah, 22nd.
22nd.
Yeah.
So maybe the week before that, the Monday of the week before that, 1 week before our next meeting, people should email their drafts in whatever form they take, ideally in Word format. Email them to me, and then I'll take a look at them. And then Tom, are you around this summer?
Regrettably.
Yeah. Maybe I can once I get everything together, maybe I can call, give you a call and
Sure.
We can discuss what, if anything, we should do with the, I think you're right. There's a danger of they're going to have a number of different dishes from the different cooks that need to be synchronized somehow. Right. So I may want to call on you to help put the sections together.
I'm happy to help.
Okay.
Would it be possible, Hector, for you to send us all those drafts so we can review them just for content?
Yeah,
we'll leave the stylistic changes to Tom, but if you could send us the drafts so we could look at it to make sure that we have all that stuff.
Sure. So what you're saying is that once I get the pieces from each person, that I circulate it to everybody?
Yeah. Before the July meeting. That way we'll be able to see, we can comment more knowledgeably.
Yeah.
Instead of reading it for the first time at that meeting.
Right. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So the deadline for each section is a week before the next meeting, which is the 15th of July, Mark?
It's the 22nd.
The 22nd is the meeting.
So we send it to you on the July 15th?
Yeah, no later than July 15th. Close of business.
So do you want me to go through it before our meeting?
Um,
I don't think so, because we're really dealing with,
Okay.
I don't mean to interject,
No,
but I
that's
think we're
fine. I
really,
just,
we're
if you
really
wanted me to
looking
go
at,
through
we're
it
really
before the meeting,
looking,
I just needed it earlier, but that's fine.
Yeah.
we're really looking at the content right now
Okay.
to make sure that we covered everything we want to cover. And then once we've done that, we'll give it to you and you can be our,
Right.
our master guru here.
Yeah, and Tom, there's a lot of time between July 22nd and Labor Day. There's like 6 weeks, so
Yep.
plenty
Yeah,
of
we know
time
you're
to
not doing anything anyway.
massage it. The other thing that I'll undertake to do is talk to Chuck and give him his assignments, i.e. what's left.
Well, there are 2 left. Oh, you're gonna give the new guy something?
Well, I'm taking your all's advice. So
I
take it easy on him.
I would, yeah.
Okay.
So enterprise funds and government structure are left.
Yeah.
And so you can give them both to Chuck, or you can take one of them, whatever.
Yeah. I'll work that out with him.
Okay.
And then, what do people think of the last page? You know, there's the tell us what you think, but then there's accountable and transparent, GFOA awards, and
Well, we've
and
always
AAA
had
bond
that in
rating.
there, yeah.
I know, but again,
I would keep it.
yeah, okay,
I think that's what's really important here.
Builds trust. I mean, that's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. That's important. I would leave
Okay.
that as it is.
Yeah.
okay. And then Mark, in terms of once we have the content, when does it typically go to the printer? After Labor Day?
Yeah, if we approve it, at your August meeting or your first meeting in September, we'll get it to the printer right
Okay.
after.
Okay, but there's no hard and fast deadline
No.
to have it done by a certain date. Okay.
No, we have no deadline for this. It's you set the deadline, the committee
Yeah.
does.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
I
Hector,
think
how many do you think we should print this year? 300 again?
I'd like to hold off on that decision, but
Okay.
I think you know, we should not only print a certain amount, but think about other ways to make it more broadly distributed, so we get people to read it, because that's the goal. So,
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else on this overview report?
any other thoughts, anyone?
Just want to ask Mark, can I have your permission, Mark, to talk to Chris at the school finance? If I need any questions answered?
Certainly. I'll
go through you to Chris, or?
You can go directly to Chris. I'll give him a heads up that he'll reach out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Okay. Is there any correspondence from committee members?
Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. Chris is on vacation. I believe next week. So just a heads up on that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Sorry, Lillian.
Mark, do we have any communication from you?
No, I don't have anything to share other than that the town council meeting that was scheduled originally for last week is going to be this Thursday. So, and there's a number of appointments on there. Yeah, so the agenda's, I believe the agenda was posted today, maybe tomorrow morning. But the council is meeting this Thursday.
Okay.
Mark, do you happen to know, I don't have the list handy, or maybe Lillian, you know the answer to this. Are any of our terms up this month? And in which case, does say, I think my term is up.
Your term is up and Jackie's term is up.
Yeah. So the question is for Mark, do you know if the appointments committee is going to want to re-interview us? Do you know what they're doing in that regard?
I don't think they're re-interviewing.
Okay.
But you know, maybe they could change that process at any point in time, I suppose. But
yeah,
to my knowledge, they've never re-interviewed a member of this committee for a reappointment. They've just reappointed you.
Yeah.
Unless you've submitted your interest not to be reappointed.
Right. And so Jackie and I need to go to the town clerk's office and swear in and take the oath again.
Yes, once you're reappointed.
Right.
So reappointments, I think are showing up on the agendas now.
Okay.
If they're not on this Thursday's agenda, they'll probably be on July's agenda.
Okay.
I don't think I saw any CFAC members up for reappointment.
I looked at the agenda quickly and I didn't see. Yeah.
Yeah, but they have hundreds of them to do, so.
Okay.
And I noticed that Gordon is here, so do you have any comments?
No, thank you for asking, Lillian. No, I'm just listening. It's I'm looking at the report and I think it's wonderful. I wish we could print one for everybody, but I know that's not possible. But it's well written, so I appreciate all the work.
Gordon, I do have a question for you. At the last meeting, you talked about the importance of looking at debt exclusions and gaming out the timing for those. Is that something you still feel is an important topic and that deserves some attention from this committee?
First of all, it's not going away, but Mr. Milne is giving a presentation, I think July 18th, about financing for the CWMP. So once he gives that interview, we'll have a good sense of a better sense of timing.
Right.
When an override would be necessary. I don't know. That doesn't say much about the schools. I don't know, how they're gonna be integrated. So so I'm waiting. That's an important step for all of us.
Right.
Thank you. Well, we'll wait to hear from you then.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other business that you'd like to bring before the committee?
I do have one question, Lillian. The last meeting you talked about drafting a letter to Neil Kleinfeld. Have you taken a crack at that yet?
I have not taken a crack at that yet.
Okay. All right. So maybe you could circulate a draft or bring a draft to the next meeting.
I will put it on my calendar to do that. Thank you for reminding me.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's no other business to come before the committee, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Is there a second? Hector?
Jackie?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Lillian?
Yes.
And Hector is a yes.
And thank you, everybody.